Let's speak now to The Sun's political columnist, Trevor Kavanagh, whose column is out today. Hi, Trevor.
Hello, Mark.
Can we talk about the column first of all? Fantastic headline, "Don't Let Vile Killer Cop Overshadow Heroes." This, of course, in the context of Wayne Couzens, who has admitted the murder of Sarah Everard. A tragic case, but not an example of how every officer behaves in this country.
No, I think we must never forget, of course, the sacrifice and the dangers that are faced by police every time they put their uniforms and walk out of their front door. Many of them not sure whether they'll be ever returning in one piece. So that's the perspective under which I think we should remember the police force when we consider the horrific crime of Cousins. So yes, I think we've got to get things into perspective here.
And that we do have world-class police officers, but what they need, Trevor, is support and resource.
Yes, I think everything is down to good management, whether it's broadcasting or newspapers or policing.
Yeah.
And I think that if you've got the right sort of leadership and the direction which is indicated, then people who respect that will follow and do what they're asked to do, which is to uphold the law and to nab villains when they're caught. And catching them is something that the police are simply failing to do now across the country. We've got statistics showing that tens of thousands of burglaries, for instance, are committed without any suspect ever being detained. We know that people who are active as rapists are very rarely arrested, let alone end up in court. And I think that this derives very much from the New York described cracked window syndrome, where if you allow small crimes to go unpursued and unpoliced, then they simply lead the way to further and bigger crimes.
And we do face, don't we, a potential epidemic of crime as we depart from the coronavirus pandemic, Trevor, and we're going to face big problems going forward, aren't we?
Well, we are, and I think everybody will have noticed that there's been a steady incremental increase in antisocial behaviour around the streets where they live, especially among young people, those who have not been at school all the time with time to fill, and the devil makes work for idle hands. Once you get this sort of coterie of young people who feel that they don't need to fear the law, they're very hard to train back to realizing that, in fact, wrongdoing has its risks, and they simply get worse and worse as they get older without being brought to book. So I think that this is the sort of thing that we need to tackle very promptly.
The Conservatives consider themselves, don't they, Trevor, the party of law and order. Well, they're going to have to prove it between now and the next election.
Yes, I think that we feel as a country that things have slipped away a bit, not just because of COVID, but because of rather more liberal attitude towards what the police have deemed to be petty crime, trivial offences. But those trivial offences often lead to bigger offences. And in the case of Wayne Couzens, for instance, he was a known flasher, or should have been a known flasher, since he'd been reported 2 or 3 times, and that his car number plates had been snapped on CCTV and passed on to the police, who simply failed to check on the ownership. They didn't even bother to pursue it. And I think that the new Chief Constable in Greater Manchester Police has put his finger on this when he says that small crimes lead to bigger crimes. And it's the job of police to not just detect, but to pursue and to take people to court, arrest them and charge them. Otherwise, who will?
With the financial cupboard bare, Trevor, after the biggest recession in 300 years, is there the resource to fix this?
I don't think this is a matter of resource, to be absolutely honest, Mark. I think it's a question of people doing their jobs. Instead of sitting around checking out people's diversity observation, I think that they've literally got to get out there when they hear of a crime, whether it's a small crime or a big crime, and pursue it. And if they do that, the criminals might think twice. I mean, this is not just major crimes like the murder of this poor Sarah Everard. It's the everything from fly tipping to the littering to it's the way of our lives which have been gradually degraded over the recent decades, where the police find that they just filter out from their systems anything that they find too tiresome to pursue.
It seems that that's right. I've had motorbikes stolen in the past, Trevor, and at a certain point, I didn't see the point in reporting it because
No.
the response from cops was hopeless, really. I mean, the best you can get is a crime number so that you can insure yourself and get a replacement. But can I ask you about the criminal justice system? Do you think that the laws need to be more robust when it comes to crime?
I think they simply need to be more robustly implemented. And this goes to the root of all of the crimes that are committed. And some are perhaps seen by some as not being crimes, but illegal immigration, for instance. How many of the people who have poured across the channel over the summer during the COVID period are sent back? The answer is none. And why is that? Because they're not properly being policed, and the Home Office, whether or not Priti Patel is champing at the bit to get something done or not, are simply resisting any move to put them into place. And that applies, I think, as you say, from motorbikes to cracked windows to everything else. It's not the police force itself. It's not the laws that need to be tightening. It's the management and the people at the top saying, get this done.
Finally, Trevor, we're going to hear from the Prime Minister at 5 p.m. He will confirm that Freedom Day is happening in a week's time, the lifting of all COVID restrictions. Finally, we're seeing the Prime Minister true to his libertarian principles and showing some political courage.
Well, I hope that turns out to be the case, Mark, because the indications are also there that the Prime Minister and Sajid Javid are urging people to carry on basically with the limitations and restrictions that we've been living with for the last 16 months, and that we're being urged to carry on wearing face masks, even though there's quite considerable resistance to this by people who are experts and who believe that they're pretty well useless, and also to social distancing in crowded events. That's not freedom at all. And I think that we need to take advice not just from the sage scientists, but also from other experts like Professor Sunetra Gupta, who is the Oxford scientist and epidemiologist, who has made the case that we are now in a position where herd immunity is almost there, and we really have to take the leap and accept that COVID is with us to stay and that we must learn to live with it.
However, I wonder whether it's a nod and a wink from the Prime Minister, Trevor, that he's going to tell people to be cautious, perhaps consider wearing a face mask or social distancing after the 19th of July. But given that it won't be a mandate, most people will choose freedom.
Well, I think that's true. I think that he probably is giving a nudge in his own way to people to say, well, look, I'm wearing these face masks if I have to, but not if I don't. But look, you've only got to look at these opinion polls, which show an enormous amount of support for very tough regulations. There is even a group of 20%, which is 1 in 5 of the public, actually believe that we should have a permanent, not just a pandemic curfew. From 10 o'clock every night, we should all be indoors. I mean, I think we've suddenly lost the sense of reason about where our freedoms lie and where they should lie. And I think we've been scared in some respects by all of the panic over COVID. But also, I think there are some people who simply like to see other people told to behave in a certain way and will do what they can to police it.
Trevor, it's a brilliant column in today's Sun newspaper. Grab your copy now. Don't let vile killer cop overshadow heroes. And a fantastic column it is too. And we'll look forward to catching up soon, Trevor. Your reaction to speculation that the Prime Minister will tell us to be cautious and voluntarily continue with masks and distancing. Will you? What happens to your mask a week today? Give me a call and let me know.